What really happened with Snow White? And is there somebody that we can blame?
Something's rotting in the Magic Kingdom. And it's not just the poisoned apple. The Walt Disney Company is in a full-blown meltdown, and the cracks are getting harder to cover up. First came the Snow White disaster. Remember when this remake was supposed to be the crown jewel of Disney's reimaginings? Yeah, well, instead, it flopped hard. Now, behind the scenes, it's even messier. Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, who were supposed to dazzle us with girl power and sisterhood and Snow White, are now caught in one of the juiciest feuds to hit Hollywood in a while. And trust us, this is not your typical creative differences PR fluff. Gal Gadot has officially had enough. But what made Wonder Woman herself snap out of her Disney days and start quietly distancing herself from the Snow White mess? It's simple. The movie she poured months of her life into, learning choreography, memorizing lines, bringing that iconic evil queen to life, bombed. Sure, Snow White initially opened with a $43 million in domestic box office, but anyone with half a clue could see through the glitter. That $43 million? That's basically pennies in Disney dollars. Overseas didn't save them either. Just $44.3 million trickled in. That brings the grand global total to $87.3 million. And remember, this wasn't some small indie project. Disney shelled out $250 million for this remake. Do the math. The numbers are so upside down that even Joe Rogan couldn't resist taking a jab.
Oh, it doesn't look real at all.
Yeah, and then they do all the work while she dances around being a leader or whatever. The script was
Wait a
screwed
minute,
from
how
the
much
start.
did this cost? They should get doged looking at this movie. They spent $250 million bucks making that movie.
And it gets worse because this isn't just any flop. You could say this is the lowest domestic debut of any live-action Disney remake ever.
Snow White bombs, breaks records for the lowest live-action remake opening ever.
Yep, even lower than 2019's Dumbo. And say what you will about that flying elephant, but at least he flapped his way to $45 million on opening weekend. Snow White couldn't even beat that. For Gal Gadot, this was the final straw. Let's just say this loud and clear. Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot are not besties to begin with. According to insiders, the vibe on set wasn't full of magical bonding and fairy dust. Think about it. Rachel's 23, fiery, outspoken, and not afraid to shake the table. On the other hand, Gal is a mom of 4, a Hollywood veteran, and polished to the core. One's riding the new wave of Gen Z activism, the other's navigating fame with diplomacy and a polished public image. Toss in some wildly different political views, and you've got a recipe for instant friction. But the real turning point was when Rachel's now infamous comments about the original 1937 Snow White hit the internet. You know the one, where she called it weird, dated, and even said the prince was basically a stalker.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
That did not go down well with Disney diehards. But behind the scenes, it was Gal Gadot who was reportedly the most baffled. Sources say she felt like Rachel was torching the legacy of a film they were supposed to be honoring. You don't criticize and cause drama for a project you signed on to do, a source close to Gal told People. And just in case Rachel Zegler hadn't already fanned the flames hard enough, she went and poured gasoline on the fire. She declared that the new film was going to completely revamp the original story.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Now, to the entire generation that grew up twirling in their living rooms to "Someday my prince will come," this was a big insult. What was meant to sound empowering came off to many as smug. Fans kept wondering whether Rachel even liked the original or whether she even wanted this role in the first place. These comments hadn't fully died down online when an old clip resurfaced, landing Zegler in hot water all over again. In it, Zegler doesn't just criticize Snow White, she throws Disney's entire princess lineup under the coach wheels. She says the original movie actually scared her as a kid, so she never even cared to revisit it again.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious.
At that point, fans weren't just frustrated, they were furious. And meanwhile, Gal Gadot, graceful, diplomatic gal, was watching this PR avalanche unfold when she hadn't signed up for any of it. In fact, she was right there during that interview praising the story and the role she had to play as evil queen.
To be able to tell her story and to get under her skin was an incredible process for me. I enjoyed it so much.
Now, despite Rachel going haywire in these interviews, Gal stayed professional on set. She smiled for the press, and she played the game. If you needed any more proof that the ice between Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot isn't melting anytime soon, the 2025 Academy Awards just handed it to us on a silver platter. There they were, side by side on stage, all glammed up, reading from the teleprompter like strangers forced to share an elevator.
With breathtaking ambition, they create magic that wraps its arms around our wildest imaginations. Here are the nominees for Best Visual Effects.
No eye contact, no inside jokes. Fans watching from home didn't need body language experts to confirm it. These two couldn't stand each other, and what was the cherry on top of this Snow White-shaped mess? A shady little Instagram comment from Zegler that might have sealed the feud for good. According to Variety, after the Oscars appearance, Zegler allegedly referred to Gadot as a professional pageant queen in an IG reply. While that might sound like a backhanded compliment to the untrained ear, in Hollywood circles, that's code for you're all looks, no substance. Insiders say Gadot took it as a low blow, a passive-aggressive swipe from someone who's clearly been simmering for months. Let's not forget this feud didn't start on Oscars night. The tension's been bubbling under the surface since Snow White was still in post-production. At one point, a movie insider spilled to Page 6 about how Rachel Zegler was completely out of control. That might be putting it mildly. Behind the sparkly dresses and filtered press pics is a 23-year-old starlet who's not only unfiltered, but unapologetically defiant, even when the Mouse House comes calling. It all came to a head when Zegler hit send on a fiery tweet expressing her support for one side in the Middle East conflict. Fans, critics, politicians, and very nervous Disney execs were suddenly watching their live-action princess go full political mid-promo cycle.
You can't help thinking that Disney's executives must have been wishing they could also give the star a poisoned apple that would set her to sleep.
According to Variety, the tweet caused such an uproar that Mark Platt himself flew all the way to New York to have a one-on-one intervention with Zegler.
They flew an executive, one of the producers, out to go visit personally with Rachel Zegler to say, could you please take that down? Because we understand you can have your political views, but those aren't really helpful.
The goal was to convince her to take it down, calm the storm, and protect the brand. But Rachel wasn't ready for that. Not only did she leave the tweet up, but she kept going, engaging with fans. Just when you thought the Snow White drama couldn't get messier, it turns out Rachel Zegler's bold social media takes didn't just shake up Hollywood. They triggered real-world consequences with serious implications. Her political posts reportedly led to an uptick in threats against none other than her Snow White co-star, Gal Gadot, whose views couldn't be more different. While Rachel was firing off posts like a political flamethrower, Gal found herself caught in the crossfire, and Disney was practically panicking. So much so that, according to multiple insiders, the studio hired extra security to protect Gal Gadot and her family. By the time the movie neared release, the storm around Snow White wasn't just brewing, it was a full-blown hurricane. And just when things couldn't feel more chaotic, Rachel Zegler dropped a truth bomb. Turns out the backlash she faced didn't stop at hate tweets or comment section rants. It crossed the line. People were literally showing up outside her apartment, screaming slurs and hurling insults like it was some twisted spectacle.
Time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats. And maybe that's a weird takeaway for this video. This is a life.
But here's where jaws really hit the floor. While Disney quietly ramped up security for Gal Gadot, offering protection for her and her family, there was no such move for Zegler. And let's be honest, Rachel didn't just get criticized. She got targeted with racist vitriol, threats, and real-world harassment. So now people are asking, loudly, why the company that built its brand on fairy tales is leaving its newest princess out in the cold. While we don't know the answer to that question, one thing is for sure. The Mouse House quickly realized they had to rethink everything. From red carpets to junkets, Rachel Zegler was no longer the sweet, camera-ready lead they could parade in front of the press. She had become a wild card. And for a company that thrives on brand control, that was a nightmare. So what did Disney do? They started pulling her out of the spotlight quietly and strategically. The first course of action was canceling the UK premiere. In its place, a handful of tightly controlled press events, with Rachel and Gal now promoting separately, like two divorced parents trading off custody.
Held Saturday in the middle of the day with limited press. Zegler greeted children dressed as Snow White.
While Zegler was tucked away performing a musical number in a remote castle in Spain, Gadot was out at Disneyland. All smiles, hugging kids, taking selfies with fans like nothing had happened. But everyone knew everything had happened. This was no longer a press tour. It was damage control on a global scale. Now, let's not sugarcoat it. As much as the drama behind Snow White has been impossible to ignore, there's a nasty little secret simmering beneath it all that's raising even more eyebrows. Gadot may have blamed the entire box office flop on Zegler, but many netizens argue one of the biggest reasons has to do with Gadot herself. You'd think with all the press, the drama, and the chaos, Gadot's acting would be a showstopper, right? But according to a growing chorus of critics, it's actually more of a show killer. One Redditor summed it up brutally, saying Gal's acting was a torture device, adding, Gal Gadot's acting is not a performance you watch, but a performance you survive. If that's not a punch to the gut, we don't know what is. Another critic chimed in with, Gal Gadot is one of those actors that makes me feel like I could also make it in this business. The critiques just keep pouring in, with plenty of others noting that Gal's good looks are about the only thing that's carrying her career. Some fans are outright questioning how she even landed the iconic role of Wonder Woman in the first place, considering how awful they thought her acting was. But it gets even more savage. A critic pointed out that if you've ever seen one of her films, you've basically seen all of them. And with all this feedback piling up, it's becoming pretty clear why Disney might be keeping their distance from Gal. When you're dealing with a bomb of a film, it's not just the drama and the politics that sink the ship, it's the performance too. And in this case, it seems like both Gal's acting and the Snow White brand are sinking fast. This wasn't Gal Gadot's first rodeo with criticism, and it seems the spotlight's not exactly shining in her favor these days. Back in March, the actress found herself at the center of a major controversy when critics questioned whether she truly deserved her Hollywood Walk of Fame star. It wasn't just the performance reviews this time, it was the tension that was practically sizzling between her and Snow White co-star Rachel Zegler that had people buzzing. Gadot and Zegler declaring their support for the opposite sides in the Middle East conflict definitely stirred up a lot of tension. And just when things couldn't get messier, critics started questioning the timing of Gal Gadot's Hollywood Walk of Fame star. Was it a genuine honor or a carefully timed distraction from the media storm surrounding Snow White? To many, it looked like a classic publicity stunt, a little too convenient. Right as the film was heading to theaters, Gadot stepped into the spotlight with a shiny new accolade. One critic even called it a strategic move for good press, meant to help clean up the Disney disaster. But what does this mean for Gadot's career moving forward? Is her silence and her very visible distance from Rachel Zegler a sign of a new, more calculated public image? Or is she just hoping to ride out the storm and let this whole Snow White saga quietly disappear into the rear view?